Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to sixth grade math, Choosing Appropriate Measures lesson. Pause while you write the lesson title in your math notebook. Pause again while you write today's lesson objective in your notebook. Today's objective is, I can choose an appropriate measure of center and measure of variation to describe the distribution of a data set by completing practice problems with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. Our Arizona standards are interpret numerical data by creating a histogram, box plot, and/or dot plot, and summarize numerical data sets in relation to their context by finding measures of center variability and overall patterns. Today we're going to start with our key idea. It says you can use a measure of center and a measure of variation to describe the distribution of a data set. The shape of the distribution can help you choose which measures are the most appropriate to use. Choosing appropriate measures. The mean absolute deviation, or MAD, which you might remember from chapter 9, uses the mean in its calculation. So when a data distribution is symmetric, use the mean to describe the center and the MAD to describe the variation. And the interquartile range uses the quartiles in its calculation. So when a data distribution is skewed, either left or right, use the median to describe the center and use the IQR to describe the variation. That's really important information, and I know there's a lot of it, so be sure that it makes it into your notebook. Looking at example 1A, we're choosing appropriate measures. The dot plot shows the average number of hours students in a class sleep each night. So our question is, what are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation? Most of the data values are on the right, clustered around 9. So you can see there's a big peak at 9, and the tail extends to the left. So the distribution is skewed to the left. So remember from our key idea, if it is skewed, then we want to use the median for the measure of center, and we want to use the IQR for the measure of variation. So our steps are to 1, identify the shape of the distribution. And I'm going to change marker colors here because I'm not sure you can read that. There you go. Shape of the distribution. And then 2, you're going to identify which measure of center you should use. Which in this case is the median. And 3, you're going to identify which measure of variation you should use, which in this case is the IQR. Looking at example 1B, we need to use the information that we found in example 1A. It says we are going to describe the center and the variation of the data set, which means that we need to find what we discovered in part A we need to find. So we need to find those measures. So the median, which is what we decided we needed to find, is 8.5 hours. And this first quartile is 7.5. The third quartile is 9. So the IQR is 1.5 hours. When it asks you to describe the center and the variation of the data set, you're being asked to put that into a sentence and say what that means. So the median is 8.5 hours, which means that the data are centered around 8.5 hours, and the IQR is 1.5 hours, which means the middle half of the data varies by no more than 1.5 hours. So your steps for this are to calculate the median, and calculate the IQR, and then describe both the median and the IQR. So those are your steps for solving this part. Taking a look at example 2, the frequency table shows the number of states that border each state in the United States. That got cut off. And we are going to display the data in a histogram. So they've done that for you. Draw and label the axes. Then draw a bar to represent the frequency of each interval. So you are being asked in this first part in letter A, you are just being asked to display the data in a histogram. So in your notebook, just for the steps, put the steps for making a histogram. And then your answer is your completed histogram. For part B, what are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and variation? It says the left side of the graph is approximately a mirror image. So we can see that. Of the right side of the graph, the distribution is symmetric. You can see that the left and right sides are very similar to each other. So the mean and the mean absolute deviation are the most appropriate measures to describe the center and the variation. So our steps here are 1, we find the shape of the distribution. Which in this case is symmetric. And 2, we find our best measure of center. Which is the mean. And then 3, we find our best measure of variation, which in this case is the MAD. You will know you are done with this lesson when your notes are complete in your ISN. You have completed your Google Form questions. You've reviewed the lesson if you need to, and you have completed the Big Ideas math assignment in your Math Spiral notebook and submitted it when it's 100% correct. Please remember to track your progress on your playlist.